a lot of different things. We talk about convergence, we talk about integration, which is basically bringing your separate security systems into play. But then we also can talk about other systems coming in and integrating into your security. So situational awareness and so forth that can be looked at and all brought into a security system. And that's really what we're going to go into today. So, if we can go to the next slide. So just from a security challenge, when you're looking at trying to put together a solution that is fully integrated, you need to take a long-term outlook on what's your security, what you want to do, what you're trying to accomplish in that long term. It's really important to develop that long-term vision so that you can put together a solution that's not going to require you to replace a head end. Really the head end is going to be that main system component that's going to sit over top, or what you're going to have everything integrate to. You want to make sure that you're selecting the right system, or a system that's going to communicate to other systems, so you're not having to make that capital investment again. Because that's really your biggest piece, is going to be that head end piece as far as a cost standpoint. And if you pick the wrong system, you now have to go replace that. So if in 2 years you outgrow it, you now have to go replace it again. Then you outgrow it again, and then you're replacing it again. And every time you're having to go through a full new training, a full new setup, you really want to make sure that top, whatever piece you pick as your head end, is going to grow with you and continue to grow on. So then we want to talk about the various systems that can come into that head end piece. What are the systems that you're going to then start integrating and building in? So we have our surveillance cameras, we have our card access control, we have intrusion alarm, burglar alarm systems, we have fire alarm systems, we have our visitor management. Some people still have the old log books, but more and more people are starting to move to an actual online or some sort of visitor management system. And we have our physical door locks and keying and so forth. So that's some of the physical security pieces that we have that we want to then bring up and integrate into a single solution or head end. So there's some real key benefits to integrating. When you want to use integration, and what justifies the cost of going to integrating your systems? And the first one that we're going to talk about is just, it saves time. So, time is our worst enemy. That's really where we come from, a standpoint of what do we have limited time of? Everyone's saying, well, we want more time, or we need more people in order to accomplish those different tasks. Well, if we had more time, or things were linking by using integration, we can save time. So what that means is that we can link events automatically from separate systems that you may have, those systems that we just listed. We can link those systems together, which is then going to give you a more routine setup of what's going to happen. So an example would be if we looked at just an access control door. So we have an access denied event happen. Somebody comes up, presents their card at that door. And if we have any sort of command center, or we're going to go back and we want to look at what happened during that time, we can link the video to that. So if there's a camera on that door, now without having to go and say, okay, that event, that access denied event happened at 12 o'clock last night. Now I have to go over to my video management system. I have to go ahead and launch that. I'm going to look, I'm going to do a search for 12 o'clock last night. I got to find the right camera. I got to pull that up, and now I got to play back the video and try to find that exact event. As opposed to if we link the two together, now right through one system, I see the event come up. There's a little icon next to it typically that you would then click on, and it's instantly going to show you the video of that event. So now you can say, was that really a threat? Is that a threat? Do I have to deal with it? Is that just something that happened in the system? So really quickly we start saving time in those type of examples. We can do this both in live. So sometimes if you have a live guard or central station command center, we can start doing that in live video events, but we can also do it in the forensic analysis of video and events that may take place. So it may be that you're doing an investigation on what happened, a door got forced, what happened, or a burglar alarm went off and a motion detector pops up. So that can be, okay, now I need to try to figure out what caused the motion detector to sense in the middle of the night. We have the camera, we can link it right to it, we quickly just pull it up. And really it makes your command centers more efficient. That's really the biggest thing that we're going to save as far as time. So now our guards that are typically taxed a lot are going to be able to have that integration, that linking. So now instead of them having to go through all those multiple tasks, instead of running multiple software solutions, they're running one solution. They're running one system that's going to integrate all those different components together into one solution. So we integrate for convenience. A little bit along the same terms of saving time, but the ability to manage multiple systems is a burden on most security managers. They're going to have to access multiple platforms, multiple software platforms. They're going to have to remember multiple usernames, multiple passwords to get into those systems. And we have various disconnects that are going to happen between either life safety and security systems, making all of this just cumbersome and burden than having a single unified platform that you could go into that would show you all of your events. So if we had one single screen that was able to show us all of the events that was coming into the system, and we had our video that could bring into that same screen, all of that becomes much more convenient. I'm not having to go from system to system to system. We were looking at a university and they had five different systems up on different computer screens. So you had to go from this screen over to this computer, so that means either transferring the mouse or through a KVM switch to this computer system, then over to this computer system, and all of that is cumbersome, to say the least, to go from all those different systems. The other thing that really causes, if you have an emergency situation, realize that during those emergency situations, people are panicked. I was talking to recently a manufacturer, and they said they did an emergency drill without telling the people in the security, and they ran. Those were the first guys that ran, right? So literally the people that were in supposedly responding to this, because they didn't know what to do. Nothing came up and then scripted them exactly how do we perform in this particular event? How do we take action in this particular event? If a fire alarm goes off, what are the events? What are the standard operating procedures that you would go through? They didn't know. Obviously, the easier we can make this on the security guards, the better. So the more the integration of the systems comes together, the more convenient we make it, and the less issues that you would have in the event of an emergency. And what everyone cares about is the return on investment. We always get asked, what's the return on investment, right? So by saving the time and providing that greater convenience of having those systems interact with each other, staff can either do more, or they can do it, or you can have less staff. So first thing would be we can reduce security staff, or maybe we don't have to add security staff. So we can actually do more with less. Or what I like to typically tell, because normally in security we don't want to tell people, hey, well, we can terminate people or we can let people go, but what if we could retask those people? What if we could make them more customer facing, put them out doing guard tours, being more customer interactions, helping students and so forth that are more in the field, as opposed to putting them behind a desk doing things that really could be automated. So now we take that person, we put them out into the field, they're answering questions, they make a security presence, it makes us feel safer when we see security out. Obviously you might have 10 people in your security staff, but if 5 of them are behind a desk, right, and no one knows that that's really a benefit, that there's actually people out there. But if they see the physical presence of security, but then you get that better sense of safety when you're at a location, at a company, at a facility, or on a campus. So how do we achieve this? How do we get to integration? So if we decide, okay, we like what we see, we want to go move to an integrated process, how do we start going down that road? Well, the most basic form is most access control systems and some video management systems have now started to allow you to bring those things into a seamless system. So it's the most basic form is going to be taking either an existing access control system or upgrading to an access control system that allows you to bring in various separate systems. So access control, or ACM and VMS for video management systems, their issue is that they're typically only going to integrate with a limited number of other manufacturers. So they're not that system that just sits and is strictly just a software piece that sits on top. So when you have access control, let's say we use our access control for the example, and that's the system that we're going to talk to, we couldn't talk to 5 different other access control systems. They're going to say, well, if you have 5 different access control systems throughout your different campuses or that have been acquired through merger and acquisition, there's going to be no way for us to say, oh, well, now we have to rip those systems out and we have to put this system in place. So there's some limitations when you try to use the access control or the video management system, because they are still tied to their system themselves. So you're still tied now to that access control system or that video management system. So really what that's going to mean is, again, with the limitation, if you have this particular access control system, they might only talk to XYZ intrusion alarm system, or maybe a couple of different VMS platforms. So you're limited to what that manufacturer is going to allow you to integrate to. It's okay as long as you pick the right manufacturers. So as long as you're building from the ground up, it's never really a problem. We say, okay, well, everything that we're going to do today is going to be this particular manufacturer. We're going to make sure that all of our intrusion alarm systems are this, all of our fire alarm systems are this. That's not normally the case though. Normally we don't get to sit there and pick every single system and say, okay, this is the system, and every system's going to be this, and every system's going to be that. Normally we have some sort of hodgepodge of things that have been given to us, that we've been taken over, and that we want to then bring in. So again, that goes back to just looking at that head-end platform. Anytime that you're going to look at a head-end platform, even in the most basic form, you want to make sure that it's going to be able to integrate. You want to look at what all those disparate systems are that you may want to integrate with, and try to say, okay, we have XYZ, we have ABC company for our intrusion, we have these systems for our fire. We want to make sure that our head-end application is going to merge and be able to take those inputs and those events into it. So that's key when you're trying to pick a head-end platform. So the other thing that we can do is what we have is called a PSIM solution or a PM solution. So these solutions really are autonomous, and they kind of sit on top of everything. These are not any manufacturer specific, because they're going to start at the very top. They don't care. They have to work with every manufacturer, as many manufacturers as they can, because they can't be tied to any one single thing. They're not out there selling access control. They're not out there selling video, fire, and what they're selling is strictly a software platform that sits on top. So they have to be basically independent of any single system. So we have perimeter, fire, CCTV, emailing, large voice or outdoor PA or indoor PA systems, access control, intercoms, HVAC, parking controls. All of those things can be brought up into one system and one system solution. There's a big price difference, just if anybody asks, just between the two. So dealing with the first phase that we just talked about can be really relatively easy to implement, because it's probably just add-ons to the existing access control system that you may have, or even buying the new head-end system that you may have. Adding those options are not going to be a huge cost to that. You've really invested in the head-end solution. Since this is a brand new head-end solution, it can be costly. PSIM solutions, they range, and really PSIM solutions, when you have a lot of disconnected systems, PSIM solutions start at maybe about $125K, they go up to the millions. Because if we talk about Fortune 50 companies that are doing merger and acquisitions, they might have 50 different access control systems. I was listening to one yesterday, had 40 different badging locations throughout the country. If you need to bring that type of information back, the size of those systems is huge. You can start rolling into a PSIM solution. So, although a lot of access control systems you'll see claim to be a PSIM solution, they're not truly a PSIM solution from the standpoint of they still are connected to their access control. Normally you're not going to see an access control manufacturer saying, well, we also can communicate to XYZ access control system and these other access control systems. Really, they're really the access control vendor at that point. But either of these two systems allow you to integrate, and they do depend on size of the system, the number of systems that you're going to integrate, how many of these different various systems are you going to bring in, what are the size of those systems that you're going to start bringing in, and then just the overall complexity. How many points and how many interactions do we want to have happen? When a fire alarm goes off, we want this, and this, and the more you build that system out, as far as how much you want to have happen, is going to really impact the cost that goes along with these PSIM solutions. So a PM solution is a little bit different than what a PSIM solution is. A PM solution is going to be a physical identity access management, and we refer to it as PM. Sometimes the two can get interweaved. There's the term IAM, which is also out there, which is identity access management. When we add the physical side, when we put the P in front of it, we come up with physical identity access management. Really then at that point we're talking to the physical piece to the access control and tying it to security. If we're just dealing with an IAM solution, that's more deals with IT, single sign-on type of identities where they have one sort of identity that's managed throughout the terms of that person's employment with the company. But basically with a PM, we now can deal with employees, staff, students, contractors, consultants that come in, visitors that are on board, and we can deal with all of those people within an organization, and they might all be being entered into various separate systems. We can now track them and put them into a single system. So basically what we're able to do is now manipulate different databases of all the different people that may be coming into a facility, and now making sure that they're in the right place at the right times, and really managing all of that through one solution. So really that PM, again, deals with the interaction of those various separate database systems to manage and to make sure that the right people are able to gain access and the wrong people are kept out of those locations. And really that comes down a lot of times to security's role. Is you're asked as in security to say, well, where do you have access to? And what is the workflow that you want to have happen with those particular individuals? Who's basically assigning and telling you what's based upon that? As opposed to when you use a PM solution, that workflow becomes an automated practice. So when you're given a job title and you're given a specific department that you work in, that can be immediately scripted to security, that security is no longer making that decision as far as where you have access to and what times and what places you have access to. It's now being given to you directly out of another system. So because of your position with the company, because of your title, department, and so forth, that's what's actually giving you your access rights within the access control system. This is a two-way interaction. We can actually have the information flow both ways into any of the different databases that we're connecting to. So we could be actually pushing things back and forth at any time. So some of the things would be if you have a non-disclosure agreement that you have visitors sign. Before we can give you access rights into our building, we want to make sure that you've signed your NDA with the company. So that would come out of the visitor management system. The visitor management system then populates you into the access control system. It's going to check and verify that your NDA has been signed, and if it hasn't been, it's not going to allow you to put that person into the access control system. It won't even add them to the access control system at that point, because it basically realizes that the NDA has not been signed. But if we have background screenings for any staff, contractors, visitors, before gaining access to the building, again, I can't issue a card because you haven't gone through the background screening. And all that then becomes automated. Contractor training, we have a lot of manufacturing customers that require certain certifications, confined workspace, aerial height working. So anything that you might have from a contractor training before you allow it on site, before you can go into a specific area. So I can't give you these access rights because you haven't gone through this specific training that you need to be a part of. So that can also be done, and we have compliance with both company and government regulations that can go along with that. So only current employees are allowed access, and then once they're terminated, they're immediately removed from the access control system. So again, we're not actually doing that within the access control system. That's actually happening in some other system. So if it's an HR platform, if it's done through Active Directory, whatever other database that we want to have basically manage that user within the system, we can remove from the database, from the access control system immediately. So that way, as soon as HR were to terminate somebody, we can be assured that basically automatically they've been removed from the access control system so that they're not gaining access. The other thing that you can have happen is, let's say you had 3 different access control systems that were done through merger and acquisition, or you have this building that has manufacturer A access control system and this one has manufacturer B. Now you're always relying on security. Once HR tells security, okay, we've terminated this employee, they have to go then remove it out of both systems. That doesn't always happen. I can know for sure that when you have multiple systems, they don't always get terminated out of both systems. Sometimes they're not terminated out of either system. And then it really comes down to, well, how often is the system audited to clean out people that have been terminated? How often are you even comparing that? I've been at some people that have 5,000 employees in their database, and they have 2,000 employees that work there. 5,000 people have access, and 2,000 actually are supposed to be in the system. Let's go to the next slide. So then the PSIM solution, and the reason that I try to point out the difference between these two solutions is that there's really, these terms are starting to come into the general span of security that we start to see. It took me, I don't even know, maybe 3 to 4 months to even really define what the two are. That's why I feel it's so important to define what a PM solution is, because you'll find that those acronyms that get applied to these things, people then start throwing around and just saying, oh, we have a PSIM solution, right? Well, what is really a PSIM solution? What's a PM solution? What's really just a good head end that has integration? And that's really why we're trying to define what those names are for you, so that you really understand what the differences are between all of these different solutions that are out there. So a PSIM solution, again, goes back and where we're talking about, brings in multiple sources of security and safety information into a single platform. Really giving you that what people call a single pane of glass, so that I'm able to go to one system and I see everything. Right? I have all of my situational awareness, all of my activity, all of my events coming into one system. So as one guard sitting in front of the system, I have everything. I can see everything. I can deal with every security and safety situation or system that may be out there. I can deal with one solution. This allows for you to normalize all of your systems. So now, again, where we went back to when we were talking about the different access control system and the different video management system, and especially if you have multiple video management systems. Maybe you have one at company A, so you have an exact access control system, or I'm sorry, video management system. You have an Avigilon video management system. Well, now I have to go, if somebody walks from one camera and then goes into another camera, I now have to go into 2 different systems just to be able to see, what system that they may be on. So what this allows you to do by having a PSIM solution is now if I had multiple systems that I've taken on, I can normalize all of that video. Now I have one system to actually go back and look at my video through, not 3, 2, 4, whatever solutions that may be out there. So what this is really, so really what this is for is command centers. When we have a command center, whether you're running a command center 24/7 or it's a command center during operating hours, really that's where you start to see a PSIM solution really take hold, a true PSIM solution really take hold. Really where you have that command center where you're going to have maybe a video wall, where you're going to bring in all these disjointed systems, and we want to bring them all into one. Some of the interesting things that this can actually do when you start talking about a PSIM solution is we have situational awareness, and situational awareness is interesting from a standpoint. It can actually then start tying in like things like social media and Twitter feeds that are then looking for the name of the school, the name of the university, the name of the company, and so forth, can actually be brought in, and if a event should happen that starts escalating the number of tweets that are happening, positive or negative, and it's analyzing that different information, it brings that in. So it brings it to the security's awareness that they actually know that there could potentially be a problem, right? So something could be happening, something could be being mentioned, maybe we already have a problem and security hasn't been alerted to it yet, an incident happened. This allows you to really bring all that in, especially when you get into more of the regional and national and global environments where that's really important, because now I have no idea what's going on in Texas right now if I'm sitting up here, but through this system, if all of a sudden a particular site starts getting tweeted about or starts appearing on social media or something may have happened there, we can actually have security from the response standpoint actually start gearing up as soon as we start getting wind of any sort of situational awareness that's taking place. So what do we get? Connecting all these various systems into a single platform really gives us the ability to link and integrate all of these separate systems into one single system. Really what that gives us is it gives us the ability to come up with standard operating procedures. And that's really what's important to security, is having those standard operating procedures. That gives an operator, so when you have security and they're sitting down in front of a screen, it gives them those step-by-step instructions, very simply, very eloquently, what they're supposed to do step by step. Because again, we have a security officer that's sitting in a command, we have an emergency situation, and panic sets in. What do I do? We need that to be as simple as possible. We need to have as many things automated as possible, so that really we take the human equation out of it and we just have a scripted operating procedure that needs to flow through. But what's even more important, though, then comes down to analyzing it after the fact. So how do we report that audit trail? So once we have these are our standard operating procedures. Did our guards follow those operating procedures in this particular event? So when we go back and we do any sort of forensic or analysis of what transpired during this particular incident, we want to make sure that we're able to see, okay, they clicked on this, they pulled up this camera, they asked these questions, they dispatched the police, so forth and so on, and that way we want to be able to pull up a full audit trail. With the video actually can be linked to that whole audit trail, so that report I can get that's able to see all of that. So again, going back to the integrating the video with access control, so now any event can be tied together. So if we have a forced door, a held door, access granted, access denied event, can be linked together within the system, so that basically it instantly comes up, it pops up on the screen, it tells security this event's happening. It can show you both live and playback of the event simultaneously with your standard operating procedures. We also have burglar and fire alarms that can be tied into the whole system so that you can get one report. So that's big from a standpoint of if you have your fire alarm, you have your intrusion alarm, you have your access control, how do you do an incident? How do you go back and kind of analyze what took place during any particular event? Well, if all that information is being compiled and delivered to me now, so now I can run a report and say, okay, I'm looking at the events that happened. Okay, the fire alarm went off, then we had this access denied, then we had these forced doors happen. All these things should have been standard when you have a fire alarm, right? So people are now exiting the building. And we want to tie the video into it. We want to see all these things. Having that single workflow, again, saves time when we're looking at that, and we're able to now get a very good idea when we're investigating an incident of exactly what happened, because all of our systems are now tied together, and we're not having to go from system A to system B to system C and get reports and then try to go in and merge them into Excel and try to combine all that. It's basically been done for us and all prepared into a single solution for us. So I don't have a PSIM solution. This is a system that we sell called IMEX that basically gives you that PSIM solution. So this integrates with 20 different access control systems, 100 different VMS platforms, central station receivers, and so forth, that allows you really to take as a full command center and see what's going on. This is used at some of the clients that they have. Paramount Pictures out in California just took on their system. Who else, Dave? Who am I missing? That's McMaster University has a large system deployed. MIT just. So when you have a lot of systems, and especially when they're not connected, when you have a lot of various types of manufacturer systems that you need to bring back into one solution, and the more buildings that you have, and the more that you acquire, and so forth, this is where you have those PSIM solutions, because it makes it very. This is the dashboard that they give you. It gives you a very good look at critical events. What's your site status? You can have breakdowns of alarm breakdowns, time of day, when are you having peak hours? So if you're trying to analyze why at 2 in the morning we're having all these alarms come in, this kind of dashboard gives you that, so you know where's your busiest time of the day, where do we need to maybe add more guard staffing, and so forth. So from here we can see that from the dashboard. And these are all widgets that can basically be configured any way that you want to define exactly the particular dashboard that you want to look at, the information that you want to see from a dashboard standpoint. The next slide is, so this is showing that kind of that standard operating procedure. So what we have here is over here you actually have the event playback. So what this is going to do is it's just going to show you a loop, right? An event gets, I think this is an access denied event. So somebody came out, presented their card, they got access denied. It pops up on the guard screen again. They don't have to do anything. The access denied event happened. It's immediately put in front of the guard. They take control of this alarm. They then start seeing the event playback, and over here they have the live video. So they're able to see what happened and now I'm looking at the live stream of what's going on. And then basically these top questions would be there. It starts at the bottom question, starts asking you, identify the situation, what's happened, ask for the person's name. So this is where we can actually bring in intercom systems that are out there. And now there's an intercom at the door, so now the guard can actually talk directly down to the person and see what's going on. So they're able to ask them their name, they can input their name, submit that name, so again, all of this gets added to the audit trail. We're able to then ask them, what should they do next, confirm that they are still an employee or not an employee, and then tell them, okay, now proceed to security, right? So then these people should have left and then gone to the security department to see what's going on with their card. All of this can be done step by step, and again, it makes it much easier on any sort of guard or security personnel and staff that are sitting in front of the computer to have all of this information displayed to them right at one given time. You can even bring in, if you're talking about a regional or a global or national, you can bring in maps. So maps can be, where am I talking, who am I talking to, what part of the country, what area, what building, and so forth. All of that can be brought into the screen so that you're really giving that guard that really quick snapshot that allows them to identify, see what's going on, and respond to that incident in a proper manner. So this is that kind of this is where it brings everything in. Again, this is more of a statistical report, but basically these are the kind of reporting functionalities that you can get. So how many alarms do we receive between this time and this time? How many alarms are we receiving between this time and this time? And so forth. So we're able to see alarm statistics and totals. This helps you a lot when you're trying to really clear out that, normally you get that access control system that's just streaming through alarms. There's just all these different alarms, and typically people just then, what happens, we ignore them because now they're meaningless alarms into the system because there's just so many of them. By using this, you're actually able to then analyze that data. Are we having problems with doors? Right? Maybe it's a problem. So why did all of a sudden a particular door shoot up? So we're able to kind of look at what's our baseline at any given time of what we should and what we expect to see, and then see where are we having those peaks and valleys that may then allow us to interpret problems before they happen, allow us to make sure that we get proper responding. Maybe the problem hasn't been reported yet, that there's a door that's not secured, so now people are just going into it, and our alarms pick up, so we can now run these reports and kind of get a up-to-date global overview of what's going on within our system. The other thing that's becoming really important, and this just goes back to trying to pick that right head-end system, is making sure that you can go to a mobile app. So any sort of platform that you would want to move to, you want to make sure that it allows you to be mobile. It's really been a push of our company for quite a number of years now that we want for you not to be tied to a thick, what we'll call a thick client. You want to basically that if this command center were to burn down, that we could then set up another command center right over here at this other location. We're doing a hospital project right now where we basically had the old command center, and that was all the coax, all the cable ran down for over 100 cameras, comes down to one location. We're now breaking that apart, so now that basically we're putting IDS all over the hospital, we've now pulled none of the servers no longer in that command center. The server's now up into their server room, all of the video. As they migrate over out of the analog cameras and migrate over to all IP cameras, they now have anywhere on the network, we can basically hook up and have a command center. So now they went from having one command center, and it was very expensive for them to put in. They actually added a second one a couple of years ago because we had to bring all that hardwired cable over to the second command center to be able to display it. Now we set up 4 command centers basically. They have now, because of the 4 different buildings that they have in the network, they can now bring up all the video from any place. So they're not tied to that central command center anymore. Not all the video is tying into that. All the access control is distributed. So now I can go at any workstation, wherever an emergency may happen, and I can go to wherever the closest command center may be and be able to access all of my video, all of my access control from that one location. So, and the same thing goes with the mobile apps, having that same sort of flexibility. If you're out in the field, somewhere on campus and so forth, that you're now able to pull and have full access to the system through some sort of mobile app that allows you to get access to the system. So you want to be able to see your cameras, you want to be able to see your alarms, because you never know where you're going to be or where the emergency is going to take place within this, within your organization, within your campus. So what we're going to do now is we'll run into. I want to show you a demo so that you can kind of see some of those different systems in play. Some of you have some of those systems, so we'll be able to go into that as well. Just give us a second. We got to connect up to our. So Frank, if you can bring up the DMP first. Yes.
The security or the password protection that we were just talking about prior to this, when you have your mobile apps. Is that an issue at all with when you have a mobile app and you have it on your phone?
So
or your
I think that
iPad?
The biggest concern of any IT is really going to be that's the weakest point is the username and password. That's really where hacking attempts, I think, as you would say, would come from. Is going to be that somebody gets a hold of your username and password. It's not necessarily so much the app itself, as long as it's done through secure protocols. It's really going to be the security is going to have to be based upon, are you using guard as your username and password to get access to the system, right? I don't think the school district's here today that we went in, I was able to get into the system. It was like security, I was logged in. You know, I was able to get into the video management system that we were taking over, and we didn't know the username and password, and I just started guessing.
That's for that 14.
Well, most of the apps have the ability to automatically sign in, right? But you can actually turn that off, so that when you access the app, you actually have to put in your password every time. It's a pain in the butt, but it's a lot more secure that way, because then the password's not, for example, I have garage doors, and I bought a system because my wife's constantly calling me, honey, I think I left the garage door open, can you check? So I bought a system now that I can see whether my garage doors are open or closed. I actually run the app on my phone, it's a risk. But it's not on Mac, I have to sign in every time. And I'm okay with that, because it's a lot easier than me getting in my car and driving home to the garage doors.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it's almost one of the products that we're showing from a back end standpoint. We're developing an app, and it's been a point of contention of whether or not we even allow that button, right? So from a security standpoint, I don't want to allow that button, but I know we're going to get asked that question. Well, I don't want to have to do that, right? And we're like going back and forth on, well, you know, you want it, right? So we want to give it to you as the customer, but it's not secure. So there's a bit then, potentially has that security risk. So there's always a risk. Anytime that you're going to allow any sort of access, I think you'd say, anytime that you're going to allow remote access, that you're going to allow any sort of thing, you're opening up risk. Hopefully you're gaining more reward with it, and then you just have to try to follow the right procedures to minimize that risk as great as possible. So what we have here, this is S2, Access Control System. It's a system that we sell. And we're basically have logged into the system, and we're in what's called the widget desktop. They have a system within their thing called the widget desktop. So what we have with the widget desktop is we're actually able to bring in video this is just a lab system that we have back at our office. So over here we have, and you can lay this screen out any way you want, but basically what I'm just showing you is all the different components to the screen. So we have our activity log, right? So this is just displaying all the different events that are happening within the system. We can have our events come up here, which would be certain things that we are not necessarily logs, but are actually treated as events that we've taken place. We have our threat level that's now shown. So this is going to be so that we can interact with the system as an entirety. So if we want to go into lockdown, if we have a snow day, if we have any sort of escalation in threat that we want to do, we can actually change the threat level within the system right through the dashboard. We can have our portals, so we can unlock portals or doors basically, so you can unlock any door right through this same tab. We can have what's called a photo ID history as people come up within the system and they present their card, it would display that. But the two pieces that are then integrated really becomes the video. So now from one system I can see my video. So if I had this tied to maybe our main entrance, and then this was our camera that was seeing the main entrance, I'm able to verify now, I'm having this guard that's sitting there, verify that the person that comes through the entrance is the person that actually presented their card, right? So that's important. We have that at a company where they have everyone going through the turnstiles. If the camera's looking at the turnstiles, the guard from the guard station can't see the turnstiles, so they basically look at the video, and then they have here, it prompts them with the photo ID of the person. So they're able to verify that the person coming in through the door is actually the employee. It's not a card I found in the parking lot. Now I walk up, I present my card, and I'm able to get into the building, but it's not the right person. And then here we have the intrusion alarm system that it's connected to. And what we're able to do is we can see right now it says zero areas armed and 1 area disarmed. We can actually pull up the panel, and we can actually arm the panel. And then if we look over here, we can say we have a request. It tells us who made the request to arm the alarm panel. And it says now the alarm panel has been armed for the main building. So again, this is where we have all of our events are coming through into one system. So we're not having to go and then, so normally if you had to run a report, you had a false alarm happen in the middle of the night, a motion detector goes off and so forth, and you're trying to get what happened, you'd have to go and ask either call the alarm company and get that reporting from the alarm company, or if you have a software package that ties into the alarm system, run a report through that system, then go and say, well, who entered the building through the main door? You have to run that report from your access control system, and now match them up and try to figure out what happened, and then go back and look at the video as to what happened. Well, here, I would have everything right here. So here's the don't know if everyone can see, there's a little icon right there that says we have a video event triggered. So all of that then becomes into one system. So that's really when you talk about the most basic PSUM solution, that's really what we're talking about. And then we can also just click on disarm, and we'll disarm the alarm panel. And now, and this has changed too. It went from 0 areas armed, now it went back, and now we have this disarm, and we have the events over there. So again, that single pane of glass of being able to see everything from the system through one software interface is really what's important here. So I'm able to see everything. If I had 10 different alarm panels for 10 different buildings, they would all show up in here. I could bring them all in. I could arm them, disarm them from a very quick glance, see which buildings are armed, which buildings are not armed. I could have my guard looking through if he sees at 11 o'clock, you know, we see particular systems that are not armed. He could then pull up the video right from the single screen. He could pull up the video for those different locations and actually then verify, oh, there's still people working in that building, that's why it's not closed down. If all the lights are off and so forth and it hasn't been armed, well now maybe he should just go arm it. And right from the same screen again, he can just arm that alarm system. Again, not having to go to multiple systems, everything is right in front of them, very easily seen. So one of the things, is that what was the video, was the DMP or video integration? Oh, we didn't go and click on one of the events. So here you have an access granted event, right? And what that'll do is it's going to pull up, hopefully with the sun glare, it actually shows you the video. So again, now I don't have to go back into my access control system, or I'm sorry, I don't have to run the report through my access control system, find the exact time that it happened, go over to my VMS platform, whatever I'm using there, launch that, go figure out the time, do a search for the particular camera that looks at that door. Everything's been integrated, everything's been automated for me, so now all I have to do is click on the icon and it will immediately pull up the video and start playing it back for me because everything has been tied together and linked, making it, again, a much more time-efficient way of me using my time. So if I'm trying to figure out an analysis of who went through this particular door at a particular time, or if I get an access denied at that door, what do I want to see? I want to see an access denied. They came out, they presented their card. I can verify, was it the person, right? I can see the person. Was it the person's card if I'm using photo ID badging? And I can verify that the person is who they say they are. And it's waiting for this. And then these are just playbacks of different events that have happened as we test things through the lab. So again, hopefully you can see that there's a huge time savings in any time that we're going to link the video. You have to link all that video. I mean, obviously that's where I say that's where the cost really comes in, is spending all the time. All the cameras have to be linked. That you have to spend some time developing your standard operating procedures. How do you want things to workflow? How do you want things to progress through the system? You have to think about that. How do you want the guard to respond? How do you want the system to display? And how do you want the system to act? That all gets done on the upfront side. But then when the emergency situation occurs, your system becomes much more useful at that point, as opposed to it just becoming a stagnant system that, again, is sitting there with all the alarms just going through. No one's paying attention. No one's really monitoring anything. We don't know what the system's actually doing for us. This gives us a much better idea of what our system is doing for us and the benefits that our system is having since we have all of this integration now taking place. So we can close that. So now we'll take you over to, so when everyone came in this morning, we have a PM solution that we developed called KeySync. And there's other PM solutions out there. And what we had everyone do, so basically what we've done is for demo purposes, we have an HR system. This is a cloud-based HR system that we selected to integrate with. But this could be any HR system or any other database that might be able to give us a file to. So what we're able to do is that when everyone came in, you would enroll somebody just as if they were a person being hired at a company. Right? So this is your HR system, this is a student directory, any sort of database that we're able to pull from. And again, this is a cloud-based solution, so it could be a premise-based solution, it could be a cloud-based solution. And what we're able to do is we basically hired this person into the system, right? So we took your picture when you came in, and now if we go over to the S2 system, and we do a lookup of that person, we've been able to populate David here into the access control system. So basically, all of the fields got populated from the from the HR system into the access control system. So what we're saving there is all the time of someone having to enter. Another example that we had was we had a client that has basically HR sends an email down to security. Every time somebody gets hired, they send an email down to security. They would then go over, they would get printed off, they'd get put into a basket. They literally have just a little basket that sits by the photo ID creation station, basically, that they have. So they take that off, they take the email, and they start typing them in. And you can imagine that now we have mistypo, we have typos, we have all sorts of issues that happen from the manual entry process that's going on. They then go from the photo ID system over to the access control system because they're separate. They then re-enter them again into the access control system, then email back HR with the badge number that they've given so that HR can put that number into their employee record. So we have this tremendous amount of time consumption that's happening for all these people, and we have mistypes that happen between, so now who's Rick in one system is Richard in another system, and so forth. We have different systems, names that are going to be used throughout. So now I have no commonality. I have no commonality of my photo. So if I could take the photo, then, and sometimes they do take the photo of that particular client, and they actually email it up to HR. But if then that person in a year or two from now takes another photo, HR is probably not going to get that updated photo. This way we keep a seamless photo throughout all of the systems. So what also happened is if we go back over to the HR system and we look down at their job title, I think it was on the first page.
Bottom of the page.
Oh, I'm sorry, right. So it has your department, so it has your location, it has your department, and it has your job title. So basically what we've done is come up with a workflow that this would be designed by whatever your particular company would be, that would be based upon the fact that, okay, this person works in security or works in this particular department and is living in this building or works in this building, then gives them their access rights. Again, this is trying to take it out of security, from security having to try to figure it out, number one, and also having security be able to manipulate the system. And we just had this the other day. We have an ongoing investigation for a client that it is somebody within the organization that is helping the thefts occur. So that it's a teamed operation where we basically have the person that's in security, one of the guards, is managing and telling somebody else when people are not going to be at particular locations because they're able to see the video, they're able to see the access control piece to it. They can then actually have manipulation of the system into it. So that's one of the things with this particular type of solution of I'm not able to give somebody access granted to a particular door. So I'm not able to go in as a guard and now give you additional access rights. Right? Normally we do that because we need them to be able to go and recreate a badge, and as soon as we give them those rights, they then have the ability to go and manipulate access levels. With this, if a guard went in and changed the access level, our KeySync product in the background would change it back. So they would change it, and it would immediately be, anything that was in there would be removed, and anything that was taken away would be given back. So we can control, so if you had a guard that was annoyed at a president or someone, a board member or something along those lines, and decided, I'm just going to terminate their access. As soon as they were to terminate them, the KeySync product would synchronize them again, and it would link them back up. So this workflow, again, just saves time. Again, a lot of this is just about saving time and saving that double entry. So based upon what your job information is, we've now selected and go over to the S2 system. We've given you your access rights down here. So this is what was given to you based upon what your job title was and what your certain definitions were. So security still has to come in here and add the credential. So it depends on, and this is all dependent upon your workflow. We have HR departments that actually issue the badges, and we have security departments that issue the badges. This can be done anywhere, but at this point now security would be tasked with creating the credential, printing the badge. But the photo was taken already. All they have to do now is if you walk down to security, you'd walk down to the security area, you'd say, okay, what's your name? They could verify that it's you by the picture. Type in your badge number, they would pull the badge, the card number that was out, put it in, add it into here, print the badge off for you, and you would now be activated in the system. So all of that is saving time again. Can we go into the Active Directory?
lost my internet connection. Restart this.
So what I'm going to show you now is what also happens when we added somebody to HR, they also got added to Active Directory. So basically what that did is that's going to be your login credentials to your computer system. So now HR added you, you basically got added, so let's go to that same, go to David, right there, yep. So basically what we did is all the information that HR put in is automatically now populated into Active Directory. So now again, the people in IT aren't having to double enter all that information or be sent an email and saying, here's all the information that's been requested. It also, Active Directory has created an email address for that person. So HR, now you have the email address immediately created for you in Active Directory. It gives you your account, it gives you your privileges, again, based upon that workflow, as far as what access privileges you're supposed to have. Also, this process can be secured from a standpoint of, it can send the person that's supposed to approve this, basically it would be a request that would be sent out via an email or some web portal, that can then request and say, this person has just been hired, they need to be added to the system, and here's all the fields that I want to populate into the Active Directory, is this okay? There would be a link that you would click on, and you would be able to validate the IT, whoever's doing that piece in IT, would then type in their user credentials to verify that they're the ones that are still adding the person to IT. For these demos, for this demonstration, we have the user credentials for our the KeySync product to push it immediately into Active Directory, but we can put in a multi-step process that allows it to have some sort of verification process. Again, it's whatever IT or whoever's managing the Active Directory services would want, but all that information then gets populated down into Active Directory. And then if we go back to S2, and we go to the contact information, you can see that email was then populated down into their email address. So we basically had HR, right, populated down into S2, it populated it down into the Active Directory. Active Directory created the email address, and then Active Directory then put the person into, or put their email address into S2. So basically just saving a lot of time from a standpoint of what security has to do as far as entering data. All this has been automatically done for you, and as you update records or modify records, they're updated automatically through all of the systems. So if we went back and took a picture of somebody in HR, retook this picture, as soon as you retake that picture, it would then populate down through all the systems and everything would have that new picture. So I know in hospitals there's a requirement every so years that you now have to start retaking a picture. You have to keep a current, up-to-date picture because we have people that have really old pictures. Well now, when you take the picture through whatever system, it will populate through all the other systems. So now that there's a common picture always being used throughout all of the systems, and that can be very helpful. So then if we go back over to HR, right, we can terminate somebody.
Sorry, David.
So basically we would terminate the employee.
That's all the employees, that's what they fired.
Maybe David doesn't want to be fired.
I'm actually representing Dave, and we're going to bring suit against you for severance.
Just try pulling up a different.
Yes, the
The internet went down again. Sorry about that. We lost. There was Wi-Fi here at the service, and then we lost it. So right now we're working over my phone on the 4G network. Did my phone shut off?
Yeah.
Is that what happened? And then it connected to the other? Missing my phone? You believe? Shut up. Put you through my phone. You back in?
I don't get fired, doing it on the phone.
Reconnect that network.
Still got both. See, that's what's good. And then we're up.
There it is. See it? Still doesn't have any. You're on that Sonic wall again. I think that's what's. Get the closer. And again here, click terminate. Now you can terminate somebody. What's nice about this is if somebody gives notice and they're going to leave in 2 weeks from now, we can actually go in and we can say, okay, that they're going to leave on the 29th or 28th of this month, or the 27th, whatever day. We can select sometime in the future. This would all be basically within a policy of how you're setting up your HR program. But we want them to work until the 28th of the month, but then we also want to give them till 5 o'clock that day, so they're going to work through that day. We have a setup that's in here that basically gives us a grace period, allows us to work till 5 p.m. and then terminates their employee. So we have this grace period here that would actually not terminate them until 5 o'clock that day. Basically what happens then is obviously the person becomes inactive in HR, but we've now gone down into the S2 system, and we would then deactivate the person in S2, we would deactivate their account in Active Directory. So again, what this is powerful from a standpoint of there's not that time lag, or again, for somebody that's in the future that we're terminating, that we're now hoping that security on that day is available, right? Everyone's got, IT's got their, workload to do, and security has their workload to do, that you're hoping that they deleted or removed the access privileges from that person, and they removed it from that particular person at the time and date that they're supposed to have their privileges removed. So what this would allow you to do is now it's going to remove the person from all those different systems based upon the fact of how they were in the, based upon how they were left in their HR system. So you basically have your system of record that's going to then reflect which one's the control system that you're going to then go off of and then move through. The other thing that we were able to do is S2 does, and we showed you already, the integration with the DMP panels. One of the additional, that's an integration done by S2. So basically what that's doing is it's allowing the communication between S2 and between DMP alarm panels. But what doesn't happen is we're not able to put the users, because basically when you have your credential and your card, we're not able to put users down into the DMP panel. So basically your card credential that allows you to come in through the door does not work at the alarm panel. So normally you're still using codes, and a lot of people still use codes. PINs are obviously not a secure form, because basically if I tell you my PIN, or if I watch you enter it in one day, I now know your PIN, so it's not a secure form of arming and disarming the alarm system. So what we've built is on the back end piece is to add an additional integration. We're able to now integrate down to the DMP your user record. So basically when you go and you add this credential here, you would add a credential, then you would be able to pick, and if you had multiple panels, they'd be listed here in user-defined fields. You would give them a profile. A profile is basically their access level, whether they're allowed to arm or just arm, just arm a system. You would assign them a profile for the different alarm panels that they're allowed access to, and it would then push them into the DMP alarm system. So now when they come in, they would present their card at the front door, they'd walk in, they could then deactivate the alarm system with their same key fob or card at the keypad. So they're not having to know a code, right? But more importantly, again, if you terminate somebody, well, I terminate, XYZ employee from the system, he now has his credential removed from S2, but he's also had his alarm code now removed from the alarm code system. So he's been deleted through all of the systems the whole way down, and he's been removed from Active Directory, so he can't get access to the network components anymore. So again, saving tremendous amount of time and providing additional levels of security by making sure that you're not having somebody left over that's in a system. So again, it just always comes down to how frequently do you do audits, right, of the people that are in your system, and are they active within your system? Should they still be having rights? Certain things, certain companies have that mandated by government regulation. Certain ones have it by company regulation. A lot of people that I see don't ever do it. So there's really, unless they're replacing the access control system or upgrading, are they really ever going through and actually scrubbing that database to verify, all of these people are actually still employed here, still working here, still should have access to these particular levels? Because what happens a lot of times is, you work at a company for 10, 15, 20 years, they've accumulated access rights because they used to have this, then they got added to this, and as they've migrated up in their position, maybe they've gone from this department to this department. Well, they're no longer supposed to have access to this building anymore, but they still have it because they used to work in that department. Obviously, by integrating these systems, we now know that as soon as you change your job title, you immediately get put into one access level and your old access level gets removed. So again, we're automating that process and coming up with a workflow that then is standardized across the system. Any questions?
Is there any other input beside an HR program that would manage everything?
And any system. Really, we can take in any database. So we could take in a simple CSV file, so it's just a comma delimited text file, Excel file.
Okay.
We could actually bring that in as the database of record or use that as an import tool and manage from that. So, because a lot of times we know that a lot of HR systems, we're not going to have a direct API interface into that HR system, but a lot of HR systems can output a file that's then updated into a particular folder. What we would be doing is we'd be listening to that folder. When that folder gets an update, that's when we would then start our synchronization process. So we might not have a direct tie to the HR database because that might have security issues, social security numbers, information that we don't want. So we're just going to listen to a folder. One of the things that we're hoping to develop is actually a whole risk profile. So we actually do want to talk to the HR system because as people get written up and different evaluations happen within HR, we can actually use that data to determine how risky a person may be. So we can then rank that person based upon where they've been going within the system, their activities within the system, their risk that they've been taking, running credit report, checking their reviews and so forth, and actually looking at the person from an HR side, taking that information that we already have, tying it to their access rights, tying it to their directory rights, so where they've been going, what they've been doing on the network, when are they accessing the network, are they accessing it remotely, on-site, and so forth, taking all that information and kind of combining it into a risk profile. So if you go from a 5 to an 8, all of a sudden, maybe that gets flagged by the security director, and they're able to look and say, well, wait a second, we got to go back and look at this person as to where they're allowed access to. Or it just basically flags before you have any sort of insider theft, insider trading, any of those things that may happen, you would basically be alerted to it, hopefully prior to something actually happening, or at least be able to, you're not now doing a complete forensic investigation of, well, here's the money, here's what was stolen, here's the information that was already taken out. We're now able to try to hopefully cut that down. Actually, if you go to, we have minimize it, go to the desktop. Oh, this is logged in as you? Or is there two screens? Here it is. It just got moved. These two.
These in life cycle?
Yeah. Click on the other one first. The other one shows. It's an interesting little diagram if everyone can see. So basically, you have the events leading up to an incident. You then have the incident that occurs. So the incident is right here occurring. So then we have our response level, the amount of resources and so forth that we begin dedicating to a particular incident that may have happened, a fire alarm, an intrusion, any sort of incident that happens within security. That peaks up, it then starts to level back off, and then we have our investigation time where we then go back and analyze what took place. So the goal of a lot of these situation management systems, and by being aware of things prior to them happening, would be on the other slide then, Mike, if you go back to that one, is to shorten that and shorten this. So the faster that we can respond to an incident, the faster that we can get to the point of the actual incident happening, and the lower amount of response people that is needed to take action on that particular response, again, that's another cost savings that you have, because now the amount of time that it takes to respond to an incident is shortened, and the amount of people that we have to dedicate to that, again, is shortened. So by having all those integration pieces, it allows maybe what would take 2 or 3 people to now 1 person can respond, or 2 people can respond to it. So we shrink that entire curve coming down, and that's really what you want out of any sort of integration and situational awareness, is to shrink that life cycle of that security incident, so those incidents become smaller.
Dick, to add to your question as well, another flow that I think people are going to be interested in is the ability to add users to the access control systems through the Active Directory, assign their privileges, and then populate the information from there, and then depending on the HR database integration level, maybe put them all the way through the process back to HR.
Yeah, everything is, so what we have here is kind of a demo purposes of what we've kind of come up with, and just our thoughts of what we wanted our workflow to look like. Every company, every different organization is going to have its own workflow that's going to have to be customized. And that's where we basically say, that's what is the workflow? We sit down with you, we go through, what's the workflow? How exactly do you want this information to come in? What information do you want to come in? How do you want that information manipulated into this system? What fields do you want populated, and so forth? And then what other systems do we want to tie into it? And really, that's the whole goal of us sitting down and really coming up with what's the best use, how can we best tie all this information together? The visitor management side, the access control side, the video side, the HR side, the Active Directory, and bringing all that and saying, how do we want all this information to flow so that, again, we save time? Right? How many people are doing data entry and wasting time doing data entry, sitting behind a computer, not in front of customer facing, not doing things that are actually add value to the organization, and are just stuck behind doing data entry functionality that could be done automated and would be more reliable being done automated. Again, back to the termination of somebody, making sure that somebody gets terminated and is not in the system anymore can be a critical security breach for a lot of locations. Any other questions? Good. All right. I want to thank everybody for coming today. Really appreciate everyone coming out in this nice cold weather that we have. Hopefully it's been nice and warm in here. I hate to send you out. Feel free to grab anything to eat on your way out as well. If anybody wanted to see anything in more detail, we can do this same demo on site. We can talk more from a consultative standpoint of exactly what systems do you have, exactly what systems would you like. Hopefully this just kind of gets the juices flowing as far as what's out there, what's available, the integrations that are possible, what can be done and what can be written to. We're always up for a challenge as far as what you'd like to do. We'd love to try to see if we can accomplish it. So, thank you again. I appreciate it. We do have, by the doors everyone leaves, we have little baskets for everyone to take. Joe, you have to take one for Michelle, I promised her. Not for Tony, though. Tony got his already.
Have a good day. Safe out there.
What time did you meet with him?
Whenever we get back. No specific. Interesting?
Yeah, you guys develop it.
You guys right there. Product.
Oh, that's all Mike. I know how it works. I know how to talk about it, but all the actual writing is, Mike is actually the guy who, Mike Fink is actually writing everything.
It always goes down to the first time.
Yeah, I mean, just definitely.
I can't tell you how many times Murphy's Law has
Right.
Yeah.
But he could also,
I'm not saying, I just think
I was saying, it
it's
would be so easy.
Oh,
It would be so easy.
It's easy, but the problem is, it's not that, it's just politics.
It's already been recorded, streaming. The button on the.
Yeah, I have one similar to it.